Unmute yourself.
Dhaliwal sir, you have to unmute yourself. It's playing, it's fine. You have to just unmute and maybe go back. The cursor has to go back. Yeah, just you can just start it from beginning. You have to unmute yourself first.
No, unmute on Zoom, Dr. Saab. On Zoom.
He has gone full screen. He's unable to find his unmute, I think.
Okay.
I think you just minimize your main window and then you have to find your unmute box where it is.
Escape. Yeah, go to Zoom. No.
I think I have unmuted
Yes.
myself
Yeah.
now.
Yes. No
Yeah,
problem.
sure.
I'll just share my. Good evening, everybody, once again, and I'll be speaking on nucleus tumble technique. Usually not much spoken about, so many of our friends must be doing it. This is the technique being undertaken in a hard nucleus. There will not be much for explaining how I do it at this moment. Nucleus out goes. Can we And having shown these two cases, I'll show you the technique in slow motion. The hydrocannula goes underneath the rhexis margin and we perform a hydrodissection. And having injected the BSS here, we just tap the nucleus. Just to show it in slow motion that we've done it twice. Tap the other end. And the moment you feel that the hydro procedure is adequate, press the other. I've written here one pole of the nucleus, but it is supposed to be the other end. And make sure that your rhexis is large enough. Zonular dialysis can occur if we perform this in a small rhexis. Not peel out the nucleus. In our method, we go on to gently press the nucleus with the same hydrocannula to tumble it out of the bag. And once the nucleus is tumbled, the hydrocannula goes beneath the nucleus. It protects the nucleus from dropping into the vitreous cavity even in adverse situations. There is no fear of catching the rhexis margin with the dialer that happens with the dialer. But here, since we don't have a bent tip, that problem is not there. And once the nucleus is tumbled, we exchange the cannula with the visco cannula. And inject the visco around the nucleus. And usually we just go over the iris. And as we inject the visco, the iris keeps going behind the nucleus all around. and we might be cartwheeling also a little, and having injected the visco behind the nucleus, and on the other side, we just bring out the cannula, press the posterior lip of the tunnel, and we are able to complete both the actions at one go. And the endothelium is already protected with the visco. Thanks for watching this part. After this, I'll be shifting over to another video. Here, the rhexis has been completed, and before tumbling, we just remove a little bit of the visco by washing it out with the hydrocannula. Hydrodissection, tap the other end, and just make sure that the nucleus is loose all around. Tap it and flip it over. So as we flip it over, the endothelium is protected by the visco that has already been injected, and we are far away from the posterior capsule. And as we usually say, this tumbling technique is a great help in hard nucleus and the narrow pupils. Another case, some of the visco is removed, hydrodissection, tap the nucleus and flip it over. The nucleus, the pupil is so small, but still we are able to do it in just a few seconds. And till this place, everything seems to be a rosy picture. But I've come with my next video, the one that I'll be showing after this, where I got caught up. And that will be, so this is, the epinucleus is out, and all that needs to be done is aspiration of the cortex. Sorry, I'll just flip over this. I'll go over to the next. This is the video. We performed the hydrodissection, but before flipping it over, I thought I have too much loose cortex here, so I just aspirated it out with the Simcoe. But in the process, the pupil became very small, the nucleus was very soft. Though I was able to flip it over and for once bring it out into the anterior chamber, but it all went in again, and I just straight away went in with a irrigating vectors and just kept washing out everything with the irrigating vectors. This was literally hydro expression.
Oh, irritated होता है ना कि doctor irritated होती है ना.
And by this time the pupil had become very narrow. But I've just kept this video here to show you the irrigating vectors. And now this is visco expression of the cortex that has come into the anterior chamber. And aspirating out all the cortex with the Simcoe, all around I could go through the main tunnel itself. But under the tunnel and usually under the side port too, I prefer going through the side port itself. because going through the main tunnel, I usually keep losing the anterior chamber. Like this part of the cortex, I just rotated the Simcoe, got hold of it, brought it into the pupillary area, again went back, got hold of the back of this part of the cortex, and brought it into the anterior chamber in front of the iris. And that finished the game for me. I usually insert the foldable lens unfolded. In spite of all this that happened, we had a very clear cornea next day. And this is the video that was starting previously. I've brought it here again. Deepak, just tell me when my time's over. The nucleus is flipped over. But I feel visco expression is the safest of all other procedures once we get a knack of it. And I've kept a little bit of this video here just to show that the tunnel is fully closed, and we are able to generate quite a huge suction here when we are working through the side port.
Sir, I think the time is up.
Yes, but I'm through. I'll just unshare the screen.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think you be present for all the questions you need to answer during the discussion time. And
Okay.
let's quickly move on to the next talk, Dr. Boramani, sir. He'll be
Thank
speaking
you.
on fragmentation of the nucleus. He has got two talks. So the first talk will be on fragmentation of the nucleus. Please, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Deepak. Dr. Deepak, you let me know if I exceed the time. You stop me after my scheduled time.
Sure, sure.
Firstly, I'll be showing the technique of closed chamber manual phaco-fragmentation. Now, this is in my older technique. This is an innovative technique, but I used to do in olden days. No more I'm doing this technique because I'm doing the technique which is shown in my second talk. That is the endo-expression of the nucleus. But this is a wonderful technique. Those who can adopt to this technique, it's a really great technique of fragmenting the nucleus. And in fact, on this technique, the papers based on this technique have I have got awards in the state conference as well as the Scientific Award in the All India Ophthalmical Society conference. So I have designed instruments for this technique. One is the blade chopper and another is the axe chopper. So these are the small instruments which are used to divide the nucleus. But this, instead of these choppers, you can use a simple Sinskey hook, or you can get these types of choppers manufactured by any of the manufacturers. It is a very simple technique. Now this is the design of the blade chopper. This is nothing like a regular, the handle is a regular handle, and at the end, you have got a blade-like extension. This is roughly about 0.6 millimeter in the blade, and the length is about almost 3 millimeters. So this is like a barber's blade. It's like a just barber's blade. Secondly, this is the axe chopper. It is just like a modified Sinskey hook. So at the end of the Sinskey hook, you have got an axe-like design. This is also again 0.6 by 0.6 millimeter. And in the first instrument shown was the length was more so that you can have a nice cutting. So with these instruments, you do the cutting of the nucleus in a closed chamber. But if you don't have these instruments, any manufacturer can design these instruments, or you can simply use the Sinskey hook. But these choppers work in a better way. Now I'll just show you diagrammatically. I do the surgery under an topical anesthesia and I use AC maintainer. But this technique can be done under the visco also. There is no need to use AC maintainer. I'm used to AC maintainer, so I'm doing it under that. So you have a side port here and a AC maintainer connected to IV bottle, and you have your regular incision, either Fron or Chevron, whatever you use. Generally, after the incision, we open up the scleral tunnel. You dissect the scleral tunnel and you open up. But this is a technique of closed chamber fragmentation. So all the SSS technique, the phaco fragmentation is in an open chamber. That is why the risk is more. Here I'll show you how it can be done in a closed chamber. So you do the capsulorhexis through the side port in a usual way and prolapse the nucleus. Now here you don't take the nucleus totally into the entry chamber, but most of the nucleus is out in front of the capsule and a small part on the right is kept inside the capsule. So nucleus is kept in a tilted way. Now after this step, you have a small internal opening. The internal incision is not compelling, but only an MVR blade is creating a small opening. So this opening is sufficient to pass an iris repositor underneath. So you take iris repositor and go underneath the nucleus, and your whatever the blade chopper or axe chopper, you pass through the side port and take it in front of the nucleus. Now with the movements of these two instruments, curvilinear movements, you do the fragmentation of the nucleus. The chamber is fully formed because of the AC maintainer on. There is no much leakage of the fluids because the chamber is closed at this stage. So this is how the fragmentation takes place. Now this is a 12 o'clock view. Your axe chopper or blade chopper is sitting in front of the nucleus. The nucleus is tilted and the repositor goes behind the nucleus. Now because of the entry chamber maintainer, the posterior capsule is stretched and pushed behind. But you can do this under viscoelastics also because the leakages are very low. So in the initial half of the movement, the instrument come closer to each other, wherein the fragmentation takes place. And when the fragmentation takes place, again the instruments move away from each other to separate the fragments from each other. So this is how the instruments move and the fragmentation take place. Now I'll show you a 4-minute video of this technique. The video has got voiceover. If you're not able to hear the voice, you let me know and talk. This is an axe chopper.
I think the volume is very low, sir. It's better you only talk.
Modified into the shape of an axe. Can you hear it? The dimensions of this
Better, but it's still volume is low.
Volume is low. I'll increase the volume. An AC maintainer is introduced near the lower limbus and the fluid is kept on. Is it okay now? The procedure.
Yeah, better. But better you only talk, sir.
Can talk. 5.5 millimeters Fron incision. Scleral tunnel is prepared. You do the tunnel dissection in a usual way. Because you are going to fragment the nucleus, excessive side pocketing is not required. Now, after the tunnel formation, the tunnel is not opened up. So you do the hydrodissection and then prolapse the nucleus. Keep it partially prolapsed. The major part of the nucleus should come out in front of the capsule. The nucleus is tilted. And now the right side of the nucleus is still inside the bag and the left side is outside so that it is kept tilted. Now you have this small initial MVR, a side port like opening. The chamber is not totally opened and through that small side port like opening pass the repositor underneath the nucleus. These are all my older videos when I was doing the technique, and this is the axe chopper on the right side. So keep the nucleus tilted and with a curvilinear motion you fragment the nucleus. So because you are doing the fragmentation in the closed chamber, it is quite safe. And once you do the fragmentation, then you open up your chamber with the keratome and take out the nucleus either through a sheets glide over a sheets glide, or if you are used to viscoelastic visco expression, you can do the visco expression. This is another case where the nucleus is a quite hard and brown one, but even those can be fragmented totally with metal instruments. The repositor is in the left hand and the chopper is in the right hand. So this way you fragment the nucleus and glide the nuclear segments over sheets glide. So the nucleus delivery technique can be your own. Only the major variation is the fragmentation of the nucleus, which is done into the entry chamber or maybe at the level of the entry capsule with two instruments pass through side port like opening. Hence, it is a closed chamber fragmentation. Now, this is a temporal incision. And this is a blade chopper, and there is a small clip how the blade works. So this can be passed through a side port because the breadth is 0.6 millimeter. It goes through the side port. So this is how the fragmentation takes place. So it's not a very simple technique, but if one masters it, it is a wonderful technique of fragmentation. Now, can I move to my next presentation?
Sure, sir. You can.
My next talk is on the endo expression of the nucleus. Now, this is a comparatively newer technique, but last 3 to 4 years, I am doing the fragmentation with this type of technique. You can't see my screen.
Not yet. Not yet.
Hello?
Yeah, not yet, sir. We're not seeing your screen. Yeah, you're on now.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you're on now.
Yeah. You can hear me, no, doctor?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, this is a technique of endo expression of the nucleus. I was doing this technique for last many years. There are various pushing techniques for the nucleus. Either AC maintainer is a hydro pushing of the nucleus. With the irrigating vectors also you do the hydro pushing of the nucleus, or you can do pushing with a visco technique. These are the pushing techniques. So pushing technique is perhaps better than the pulling technique for the nucleus. Now, though I've been doing this technique for last many years, this term, the endo expression of the nucleus, was coined by Dr. Kunwar Vikram Singh Dhaliwal. Unfortunately, he is no more with us. So before going to the endo expression, let me show you what is auto expression. Now, generally, all my surgeries are under AC maintainer. So with the hydro pressure in the entry chamber, when the nucleus comes and gets stuck into the incision, many times you don't need to do anything. The hydro expression slowly pushes out the nucleus. And this is how the auto expression of the nucleus takes place. Now, many times, last time I have talked about the management of the astigmatism. So many times you have to take out the nucleus through a small or U-shaped incision. So how to manage the nucleus through a small incision? So with the AC maintainer, when the nucleus is stuck into the antechamber, already there are side pockets on both the sides. So you pass a Sinskey hook through the side port and try to push the nucleus out. Now this is a metal instrument which is pushing the nucleus inside the scleral tunnel, and the whole nucleus may come out or the nucleus get fragmented into the scleral tunnel. So this is the endo expression of the nucleus because you are pushing the nucleus from inside out. So you fragment the nucleus into the scleral tunnel and take out the pieces. So once a division takes place into the scleral tunnel, rotate the nucleus. Now with the AC maintainer, the chamber is always fully formed, but without AC maintainer also you can do this technique with the viscoelastic into the antechamber. This is another case. There are many cases. I show you only 2 or 3 videos. See, this is the size of the incision, and the nucleus is quite big compared to the size of the incision here. So pass a sheets glide inside or a repositor Try to bring the nucleus into the scleral tunnel. The nucleus gets stuck, it cannot come out. So take the help of the Sinskey hook. Sinskey hook is a metal hook. So whatever may be the hardness of the cataract, that hardness is hard for ultrasound energy, not for a metal probe. So all the nuclei can be divided with a metal probe. With the Sinskey hook, you push the nucleus. Now, whatever the pressure is there, the friction of the nucleus, the pressure and the friction is borne by the walls of the scleral tunnel and not the endothelium, because the chamber is fully formed and you are pressing inside the scleral tunnel. So this technique is quite safe. You divide the nucleus into the scleral tunnel, either divide it or stretch the scleral tunnel and it comes out. Yes. I'll skip this video. I'll just go to my last video. This is a absolutely U-shaped incision. Sometimes when I don't want to induce astigmatism, I take the incision a very U-shaped. Now this is less than, I think this is less than 4 millimeters of incision. You don't need such a small incision. Even if you have a 5 millimeter incision, the case done and the nucleus is coming and now got stuck here. Even if the size of the incision. So this is a diagrammatic representation. The tunnel is open and the nucleus is now pushed into the scleral tunnel with a Sinskey hook. And because of the SA maintainer or viscoelastic, the cornea also is ballooned and you are safely away from the endothelium. So this technique is quite safe and you can tackle all types of nucleus through all types of tunnels. Now, I think through your webinar, so many nuclear division techniques are being shown and many times the audience also is perplexed, which is the best technique. It's a very complicated question because all techniques look very attractive, but they're all very complicated. So all the techniques come with a statutory warning. They are hazardous and handle with care. Thank you very much.
Your closing remark was the highlight of all our seminars. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, clear.
Yeah. Dr. Boramani sir, your closing remarks were the highlight of all our seminars. I think that's the take-home message, because the audience are going to be perplexed because each surgeon is comfortable with his own technique. That's the reason. So may I request Dr. Sundaram Shetty sir to present his on management of few complex cases? You have to unmute yourself, sir, first.
Good evening, everyone. I think last time when we were talking about the bisection of the nucleus, I think Nagaraju asked about how do you manage in a Morgagnian cataract. So I thought I'll show you 2 small videos of how to handle the nucleus in Morgagnian cataract.
Sir, can you just make it full screen, your video player full screen? Go to the right-hand top there. There's a square box.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
So here is a Morgagnian cataract. Capsulotomy is already done. The pupil is rigid and semi-dilated. As you see, the nucleus rotates in the bag, but it refuses to come out. So we have to find a way to get the nucleus out of the bag into the anterior chamber. So use a dialer and a repositor and try to catch it. And if you get an edge like that, you can pull it out of the pupil and bag and the pupil. The other way is to use a cystitome, which is sharp. You can engage the nucleus and instead of the dialer. And you see here, I was using a bisector, actually, a wedge-shaped cross-section instrument earlier. It must be almost 20 years old video, I think. So I used to cut with that bisector and then split the nucleus into two, and with the help of the repositor and the dialer. Ideally, you should divide it totally into two. Here I was able to do almost that, but a small attachment is there, so which sometimes can be hazardous. The other piece can create little havoc. Here it does get disturbed, this one, but not so bad. As you see, the other piece is abutting on the iris, but it was okay. So we reform the AC again and align the other piece to the tunnel and take it out with the help of the Vectis and the dialer. So my thinking is that always, have a simpler technique and which can be, repeated with the similar results, so that in high volume surgery, you do need to have a simpler technique to do so many number of surgeries in as short time as possible. Here the inner opening, which is very perfectly shown with a dimple, and you cut to the right and left, which goes parallel to the mid-limbal line. So that is the so here the Sinski hook is used instead of the dialer, so that you can engage this slippery nucleus and easily you can dial it out from the bag. The danger here is the empty bag and the zonules, which can easily give way because it's an Morgagnian cataract where zonules are very friable. Just, you have to engage the sharp tip of the needle and try to dial it out into the entry chamber. In this case, it is oblong in shape. I can use the narrow side of the nucleus to engage in the tunnel and then take it out instead of bisecting. To be very gentle so that you don't disturb the zonules or the PC. So the things to ponder is, the slippery nucleus and cystotome to engage. Sorry, I was a bit too fast. Okay, so this is the next case, which actually was put on my table, and when I saw the case, there was little haziness of the cornea, but I thought maybe there is a raised pressure. It's during this COVID time where this routine IOPs were not done. So I thought a while, and then I don't know why I decided to go ahead with the surgery. So I did a parabulbar block and then gave little pressure on the eye with fingers, and the cornea cleared a bit. I thought I should be able to continue with the surgery. So I went ahead. But by the time I was halfway through the capsulotomy, cornea started becoming hazy again. I couldn't complete the capsulotomy because of the haziness. I had to do it with the scissors. I extend the tunnel on as a routine way, and I try to mobilize the nucleus to cataract. But the tunnel action, but I realized that the anterior chamber was so tight and there is no way I could actually do the bisection. Even if I had done, I wouldn't be able to split the nucleus the way I do, because there was hard and it was very tight. Any instrumentation into the anterior chamber was difficult. I decided to give up the idea of bisection. I simply wanted to deliver the nucleus, maybe the sandwich technique. So I also go ahead and weaken the tunnel so that I should be able to deliver the nucleus relatively easily. And I kept on putting visco between the nucleus and the cornea to protect the endothelium. So I made the tunnel as wide as possible. I knew I'll have to put sutures in the end. It doesn't matter. So I reformed the AC again, and I managed to deliver the nucleus this time. It was one hard brown nucleus. So by the time, as you see, so much of trauma has taken place. So I had to, I removed all the remnant of the cortex there was, and then the rigid IOL was put. I thought it may help me to form the anterior chamber comparing to a soft lens. But as you see, by the time I form the AC, the IOL tends to come out, but I managed to put the lens in the sulcus. Obviously, the bag was not intact, but eye was very tight, cornea's bit hazy already, and I had to remove all the visco there is because it may further increase the pressure post-operatively. So I clear all the visco in the entry chamber and around the IOL, and I close the eye with 2 sutures, which may not be shown in this video because while editing it got cut off. So the points to ponder is, the decision I feel is wrong, and and I was not sure whether my decision was right, because the case has already been put on the table and draped everything. So that might have made me think that I should go ahead and do this surgery. What I probably should have done was not to go ahead and cancel the case and reassessed and taken the correct decision about the raised intraocular pressure and take care of the pressure and before I operated. So once I decided to go ahead, that's the best I could do. And let me try whether I can show the picture 6 weeks post-op.
Sir, close that this thing Windows player, close. X is there, no? Top right hand side. Top right hand side X. You can close that window.
How do I show another one?
Yes, you just have to just go to the top right hand side.
Oh.
Okay, you have got out of the Zoom.
I'll go back and
you first, yes.
I think this is the one, yeah.
You have to start sharing the screen.
Yeah. Share first.
Yeah. Okay, now it started, but it's again the same video is playing now.
Oh.
You have to close that window. You close the window of the video player.
Share screen. Share first. I want to show this one.
No, sir, your screen is not shared.
No, first you close the video window, sir, then you start sharing.
Okay. No.
Yeah, it is sharing now.
Sharing.
You close it again.
One second. Sorry. If I get it, fine. Otherwise, I will. Okay. Right is here only.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we are seeing your video player end.
It is the blank thing.
Yeah, blank screen. You play.
Click the cross.
Click the cross on the right hand side top.
Uh-huh.
Beside it, yeah. Now you can close it. If you can see that, you can close it cross. Close this window, sir, first.
I think this is the one. Yeah, this is the picture. Yeah, this is a 6 weeks post-op. This is how the eye looks now. The lot of oxidative membrane which have become organized, and cornea is fairly good, and vision is 680, but there is a membranous fibrinous membrane which is organized going from the left pupillary area up to the edge of the wound. The intraocular pressure, it was a very stormy first week post-op, and the eye pressure was high. By the end of the week, pressure came down with medication. Presently, IOP is 14 with 3 anti-glaucoma medication. So we are planning to do a trabeculectomy for this person. Maybe choose the superior nasal quadrant and do a trabeculectomy. The gonioscopy, the area where the tunnel is, that part there is crowding of the iris, and the rest of the angle is open. Probably it is a missed angle closure, open angle glaucoma, because the black cataract did not allow us to see the disc, and the IUP, I think, was not checked during this COVID time. So it is one of those cases which is kind of a nightmare for any surgeon. Thank you for the reading.
Thank you, sir. I think we'll have some discussion during the time. Dr. MSR, sir, I think please go ahead with your presentation. I want the discussants to be ready with their questions so that they can start the discussion as soon as Ravindra sir's presentation is over.
Dr. Deepak, I'm audible. You can see the video. Can you see the video?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine. I wish I had the preoperative picture on slit lamp. Both the eyes had this picture, and the lens was wobbling. There was severe phacodonesis, and you could see the edge of the lens all around. Whenever the patient moves up, this edge is visible, that edge is visible. So I took him up for surgery. The pressure was high, and fundus, he is a known case of glaucoma, very advanced defects, and optic disc, optic nerve head showed very narrow rims, and his vision was quite poor. So he was ready for a surgery. We discussed a combined cataract surgery, which involved, initially the lens extraction, plus possible vitrectomy and a trabeculectomy, and then iris claw lens. That's what was planned. And let us see the surgery that happened. This is the first eye. So that's the translimbal entry or sclerolimbal corneal entry. Staining of the anterior capsule with trypan blue under air. I aspirate the trypan blue. I do not replace it with visco as you used to do it, because sometimes through the zonules, the trypan blue can go inside and stain the vitreous. So I always aspirate, irrigate, and once it's exchanged with the BSS, I'll see the amount of wobbling the lens is doing it. It's a very funny type of a capsule. It doesn't tear easily in spite of the trypan blue staining. What I do is whenever I plan to remove the entire capsule bag, I initially do a rhexis. I remove the cataract. At the end of it, I'll remove the capsular bag. That's my usual. And then I put the IOL, and then I'll remove the capsular bag. This is to save the anterior hyaloidal phase. Here I know I expected the nucleus to be very large. So internal lip of it, I'm enlarging it. And I continue doing a larger axis so that there's no additional strain on the zonules. So, but when I prolapse the nucleus into the anterior chamber, I found that the nucleus is not very big. It's manageable. So that's the hydrodissection I'm doing it. And under topical, so I'm injecting some amount of 1% lignocaine into the anterior chamber. Because of the larger axis and the small nuclear size, I had no difficulty in prolapsing the nucleus into the anterior chamber by manually. And then I bisect the nucleus and take it out of the eye under the endothelial protection of HPMC. So that's the HPMC being injected continuously all around. And I support it with the mini Vectis. try to bisect it, but it's quite a hard nucleus. It doesn't bisect with the shaft of the cannula. So I replace it with cystotome. This is my usual technique for all hard nuclei. The cystotome is again mounted, is a 26 gauge needle mounted on a syringe, and visco is being injected continuously throughout even now, separation completed. I impale it with the cystotome itself so that I have a good grip of it, and then I pull it out. It's a visco expression plus some amount of traction is necessary because it's a large, hard, thick nucleus. Second one comes out easily. And I see that I have not disturbed the zonules yet. And I was thinking that the entire capsular bag can come out anytime, but very carefully, after repeated injection of visco, I had to inject it. Every time I took out the cannula, I had to inject that which I've edited it. So capsular suppression is easy now. It's not very difficult. You can see how the lines on the posterior capsule, it's just trying to come out. The entire capsular bag is trying to come out. So you can see the striae on the posterior capsule. I could easily manage because the inflow and outflow are perfectly controlled between the infusion and the aspiration. So I could complete the, in spite of the upthrust is actually increasing. Some amount of fluid may be going to the vitreous cavity. I have more and more upthrust. And you can see the iris trying to pull out the cortex, which is coming out, the capsule, which is trying to come out, is prolapsing the iris out of it. So I had to keep on injecting it. I took a lot of time. So now it goes back. The moment I go inside, it gets prolapsed. I was successful in it. Then I was thinking that why not I keep the capsular bag and still put. There is no way I can sort of put a lens inside the capsular bag and hope that it will remain on a long-term basis. So after successfully removing it, I formed the chamber, and I took this amount of it. So you can see how the capsule is trying to come out. So I put a lens in the anterior chamber. Then in the usual technique of enclavation, I used a 27 gauge cannula to enclavate on both the sides. That is the entry at the limbus. It's a very short tunnel. It's not a long tunnel because I'll have to enclavate. I have to reach the peripheral iris to enclavate it. So it has to be a peripheral, even sclerolimbal incision. That's the intraocular lens. I test the patency or the slits that are there. Sometimes, one or two cases there was no slit. I go inside and then I can't enclavate it. When I take it out and see there is no slit there. This can happen. So you very gently move it. If the two move even by a few microns, you will appreciate then the slit is intact. So I have more and more difficulty in keeping the anterior chamber. So it's very tight AC right now. So I'm forming the chamber. It forms, but the moment I go inside, it shallows down. Now I'm aligning it to the incisions I've made in the limbus. AC is quite shallow. I'm worried about the endothelium. So you can see it's pushing the entire lens out, the pressure inside the eye. And I hold the haptic-optic junction at that part, little more peripherally, take it behind, and I'm ready with a 27 gauge cannula there, which is got a very short end. It should not be long, otherwise you'll be pressing on the lid. It should have just about 2 millimeters, and you can see beautifully I was very happy to see the enclavation. Now I'll have to enclavate on the other side. The cannula should have a short tip. If it is long tip, then you will be touching the conjunctiva and the lids, and patient will start squeezing. So that's enclavation. So actually the lens is well centered, but this is the prolapse of capsule bag and vitreous. As you can see there, rhexis is somewhere there. When I inject and form it, the AC is
in the phone.
Can you mute? So I made a hole in this iris with a needle and enlarging it with a cannula. So I removed all the viscoelastic. So you can see the prolapse of the vitreous there. Now, there's no way I can remove the capsular bag. If I remove the capsular bag, vitreous is going to flow out. So I abandoned the idea of capsular
To return
back
to God.
deepening. So that's the end of the surgery. So I had many options. I wanted everybody to discuss on this. I had many options to handle this case, and I was worried about long-standing glaucoma.
Ma'am, can you mute? Hello, sir. MSS, sir, you're muted.
Yes. I muted myself. Yeah, because of the long-standing glaucoma and the status of the eye, high pressures before surgery, I was worried about expulsive hemorrhage as well as choroidal. I was prepared to face it in case it happens. I discussed this with the patient, but luckily there was no choroidal effusion. Progressively, the pressure increased during the surgery. That could be some amount of fluid, in spite of my efforts to avoid it, some amount of fluid going through the zonules to the vitreous cavity. But at the end of it, the surgery I was extremely happy. The only thing is I've left behind the posterior capsule, which will opacify. And in case the pressures are under control post-operatively at some point of time, well before it gets really opaque, I would like to do a YAG laser in the center to give back some vision to him. So I need, especially from Dr. Deepak and Dr. Shetty and all others, Dr. Ranjit, Dr. Boramani, kindly give your opinion so that if I can modify the other eye surgery, I would like to do it.
Thank you, sir. I think now we'll go on to the discussion part. I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to discuss for each of the presentations. May I request Dr. Sheetal Ballar, I think, to start the discussion, please. You can ask your questions.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all the seniors and experts for their beautiful videos. It has been a very good learning experience for all of us just watching all these videos. So firstly, I would like to ask Dr. Ranjit sir, in your technique, is there any case selection criteria, or you do it you routinely for all cases?
All cases, soft cataracts, any grade. And the first video that I showed was the hardest cataract, big black nucleus. All cases we can do it.
So,
We just plan on the table in the eye. If we are not able to cartwheel it out easily, so let's go in for the tumbling technique. And usually we find tumbling technique to be the fastest way out, so why wait for cartwheeling it out? Bisection we've never tried.
and in small pupils, is there any where you cannot see the hole very easily? Does it face a challenge?
I think this is the most ideal for small pupils itself.
Okay.
Small pupil, we just once we have made a good what you call capsule access, this is the ideal for a small pupil.
So for people who are trying this technique for the first time, any precaution apart from the larger rexes you mentioned?
Large rexes and zonules should be intact.
So not to be tried if there is any compromise on the zone.
Yes, not to be tried.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I would just like to show I've got a small quarter plate here. All that we are doing is we're bringing in and just pushing it up. That's it. And this protects the nucleus from falling just in case it ever tries to.
Okay,
sir, at this point, can I ask you a question, sir? So the
Please unmute yourself.
Sir, at this point, I would like to ask you, when you tumble the nucleus, the posterior curvature would be steeper of the lens. And when the lens is very large, I would definitely be worried, is it going to touch the cornea? Because the anterior surface isn't as curved. So, How does
I
that
don't
work?
think so. I don't think so. The endothelium is well coated with the visco, and we don't let the nucleus stay in the anterior chamber even for very long. As soon as it is flipped over, and initially when we flip it over, it is not fully into the AC. So by the time we remove the hydrocannula and put in the viscocannula and again start forming, the cornea and the posterior capsule are both far away.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So would you advise this for soft nuclei for the beginners?
Might any nucleus,
Because you wouldn't get a good grip to flip that like you would get in a harder grade of
honey,
nucleus.
but if we are not able to flip it over fully, we are able to fragment the nucleus and then we can just visco express it out again.
Okay.
Like one of the videos I was showing, the fourth one, I was not able to flip it over properly. So in went the hydrocannula, irrigating vectors and brought out all the fragments.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ranjit, is there any critical, size of the rexis for this technique, or you can try with any sized rexis?
Please, sir, we have never tried with smaller rexes. Rather, we have never made a small rexes. And at times when the rexus is not that big, we have been giving those radial cuts in the rexus margin too.
One of the objections that larger rexes will cause, like I am totally against that argument. The rexis margin should sit on the edge of the lens. Larger rexis, or if it is going beyond the edge of the lens, it is the cause for increased incidence of PCO. What's your long?
Rather, sir, I'm the exactly opposite opinion. The PCO usually starts under the that rim of that anterior capsule and then goes over to the back. So the cells under the anterior capsule, they're the troublemakers usually.
Okay. You can continue, Dr. Sheetal.
Yes. So my question was for Boramani sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in your endonucleus technique, is there any risk for iris trauma? Because it seems to be a little blind when you're pushing the nucleus from within the anterior chamber. Is there any risk where the iris may inadvertently get caught?
No, that is very unlikely because you are seeing the tip of the Sinskey hook and it goes to the equator of the nucleus. See, when the nucleus gets stuck into the scleral tunnel, only half of the nucleus is now occupying the anterior chamber. So lower pole of the nucleus is almost in the pupillary center. So you can very well see the lower pole of the nucleus at the equator region you are pushing with the Sinskey hook. So this worry is never there. I don't think that risk is there in the situation.
Among your two techniques of bisecting the harder nucleus and removing versus pushing it, have you seen, like your previous talk was on the SIA, any change in SIA between the two techniques where one you're bisecting and removing, whereas the other one seems to stretch the tunnel a bit? Any change in the astigmatism caused by these two techniques?
No, I don't think, because the astigmatism depends only upon the chord length of the incision and the distance of the end of the incision from the limbus. Whatever may be your internal dissection, you do a large scleral pocketing, you don't do, your internal incision is always big. But in my opinion, astigmatism depends only upon the chord length of the incision, the distance of the ends of the incision from the limbus, and the location of the incision, whether it is superior temporal, or temporal. That is my opinion. So stretching and no stretching also, in my opinion, doesn't matter much as far as the astigmatism is concerned.
So,
because the sclera is elastic.
Techniques, you said there are various techniques and each one prefers their own. Like, what would be your criteria if you are operating a case? Which would you choose for which scenario?
No, it depends upon the surgeon's expertise. Now, mostly I'm doing the endo expression, but sometimes for endo expression also, if I feel that the nucleus is quite big compared to the size of the incision, I resort to the technique of this closed chamber manual phacopragmentation. Now, closed chamber manual phacopragmentation. So that nowadays many times I stop the entry chamber maintainer, put viscoelastic because it makes it very safe, and then fragment the nucleus into the entry chamber. But once the nucleus get fragmented, it is difficult to express it out with Blumenthal technique, especially if both the fragments are in the entry chamber. Because the content of the nucleus are ragged, they cannot effectively block the scleral tunnel and the fluid starts seeping out. So in such cases, or even during fragmentation, sometimes a small piece of nucleus remains inside. It is very difficult to remove it, even if it is a small piece with Blumenthal technique, because it doesn't block the scleral tunnel, it keeps rotating inside. In such cases, it is very safe to express it out with a visco expression, because the viscoelastic keep occupying in the entry chamber and gently starts pushing very safely that small piece, and it becomes very safe.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question for you. In the
Yeah.
closed chamber technique of this phaco-fracture, the hydrodissection is done in the closed chamber. So
Yeah.
would that slightly increase the risk of PCR?
No, never,
Because-
never.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, the hydrodissection cannula is quite thick, thin one compared to the breadth of the side port. The breadth of the side port is about 0.9 to 1 millimeter, and the cannula is very thin, which occupies 1/3 to 1/2 of that side port. So there is always seepage of the fluid. In fact, many surgeons always they advise that you never do hydrodissection through the side port because it is very risky. But
Yes, sir.
it is not at all risky. I always do hydrodissection to the side port. And because of that, the PC has never ruptured because there is always egression of the fluid from the sides of the cannula. The side port is quite big compared to the size of the cannula.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
And how sharp is this, the blades or the axe chopper?
Yeah. It is not very, very sharp. You just compare the sharpness of the Sinskey hook. Sinskey hook is not like a needle.
Correct.
It is not as sharp as needle. So that much sharpness is sufficient. If you have a very sharp instrument, then if suddenly sometimes you can rupture the posterior capsule.
So it's nowhere close to these phaco choppers, the sharpness of the...
No, it is not. They are comparatively
very sharp.
Maybe
Blunt.
little blunt compared to them.
Okay, sir.
And all
Thank
the
you.
nuclei, they are hard, but they are not hard as stone. And they can always be divided with the metal instruments, because our metal instruments, you are manually breaking it. So it's not an ultrasound force which is required for the division. We always feel hard cutter is very hard, but that is hard for phaco, the ultrasound energy, not for the manual phaco fragmentation.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Just to butt in one, so your iris repository, which you use it for the base, we all use Vectis in our system. We all use Vectis for, as a support for bisecting. But you use an iris repository like thing, which is the diameter is very small. I'm worried of any flipping of the nucleus happens because of the smallness of the repository.
Correct. It's absolutely good question, but that's why you have to be very careful and very slow in your action. Suddenly, if you do a fast action, flipping can take place. So the technique is not very simple, but once you get hang of it, you will never do that mistake. That's what.
And they have to be, diagonally opposite to avoid that thing. The fragmentation at which we use angulation, the bisector and the iris repository.
Correct.
Diagonally opposite to each other, maybe the flipping chances reduce.
Correct. Yeah, no, don't press it like that. They're coming obliquely like this. Okay. The nucleus also is sitting oblique, and you are coming closer. The moment fragmentation takes place, again you are taking the instrument away from each other. So that causes the separation of the fragments.
And does it cause complete bisection, or they're irregular, or are they pie shaped, the fragments?
Yeah, all possibilities are there. It may not be a complete bisection. Try to do regular bisection, but you may not be able to achieve it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
May I add on a point?
Yes,
sure.
Okay. Actually, the confusion is that where is the nucleus? With the asymmetrical or the viscous, the nucleus is now like in a snake's mouth inside the tunnel. It is not touching the endothelium.
Correct.
It is not touching the scleral angle. It is inside the wide bore of that wall, and there is pressure increased either a viscoelastic or by the asymmetrical fluid. And it is not adequate to take it out to the small opening. And like that, we do espisiotomy for normal delivery. Here you can increase the incision a little, it will come out. If you don't want to increase, the only thing that you have to take your Sinskey hook and press. Again, I'm repeating it, press not from the down part, but pressing on the edge, and pressure should be down so that the lower lip is pressed. It comes out. The little smaller endo in the outer circle is softer, they will be shaded off and it will come out. Very hard, you have to really press hard so that there is you are breaking, holding the nucleus with the tunnel wall and breaking it. Dr. MS does it very beautifully with 2 hands, but 100 people can do it using that fulcrum of the wall as the holding organ, holding instrument, and cutting with the chopper. Thanks. And I have posted some photographs you can see, and about that small pieces, you can use that forceps. Thanks.
One more thing you can do, suppose if you feel that during endoexpression, the nucleus is coming out, not coming out properly, or there is too much of pressure on the sclera, you can support the prolapsing edge of the nucleus through the main incision with a Y hook on the other side. So now the division takes place between 2 metal instruments, not between sclera and the Sinskey hook. So it is between Y hook and the Sinskey hook. That also can be done.
Dr. Jagannath, can I ask you a question? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful video. I've seen it a couple of times before. Have you tried making more than 2 pieces? Like if you have a larger nucleus and with the same technique to, instead of 1 chopping, you can do 2 choppings or 3 choppings so that you have the nucleus becomes narrow and long so that it comes out easily through the tunnel. Is it necessary or?
It is not necessary. If you take more pieces, your difficulties increase. Difficulties will increase. Because nucleus, if you make 2 pieces, most of the times your incision is 4.5 or 5 mm. So the half piece can be easily taken out. If you make more pieces, because there is one person from Dombili who keeps doing like potato chips, he keeps making longer and longer pieces. So remove each and every piece becomes very difficult. He make pieces come exactly like those McDonald's this thing. Longer one.
Fried chips.
Fried chips.
Finger chips, something finger chips.
Something like finger chips. Then the struggle is more. You have to keep putting viscosity and keep holding one by one and removing.
I think if you see the vegetable cutting tools, we may get many ideas for cutting or carrot.
Dr. Buramani, in that wound, the whichever has come out, that the wound part of the nucleus, about 1/3 or is come out of that visible. So with that same chopper as you're having, on the outside, if you chop it, that triangular segment will be out. Now you push it back inside the chamber, like we cut that intraocular lens and take it out, it comes out. So that is also very smooth without going inside. You can do it from outside, much more safe. We explain it to the other people, for the residents especially, that they don't have to go inside at all. So that's a very simple thing. Thanks,
Dr. Blumenthal also demonstrated that with a needle.
So this is basically just outside, totally outside.
He does the chipping outside. So here if you get a big pie-shaped incision, the effective diameter of the nucleus is reduced, and you can slowly rotate and take it out.
As you are doing very safe technique. Explanting the IOLs, we do the same, follow the same principle. You explain for the residents and new surgeons, they will be very happy.
Correct.
Deepak, may I share a photograph of this, what Sanjeet is telling us? I've got a photograph. I'll just
please do that. Please do that. The residents, they should learn properly without going inside.
This is what we did. Brought out the nucleus into the tunnel with a
exactly. Fantastic.
And with a Sinskey hook in the middle, we pulled out this, and I started calling it cord nucleotomy. And then the rest of it can be rotated through the tunnel.
Absolutely.
This was a 9 mm wide nucleus.
Beautiful. Boramani sir. In Karnataka, actually, see, there are so many cultural differences. In Karnataka, most of us don't do Blumenthal technique because we have all learned from either Dr. MSR sir or Dr. Sundaram Shetty sir. We have got only 2 classes, but we are fascinated by the Blumenthal technique. Just to know, what would be your bottleneck? Dr. Ravi Kulkarni is there in our team. He's
Yeah.
the only one who does Blumenthal technique, and he uses the AC maintainer even for phacoemulsification. He's such a fan for AC maintainer. He's a lone person in our entire group who use this technique.
Yes,
Just wanted to know your thoughts on what is the bottle height, and do you vary it sometimes? Now, suppose the nucleus is stuck in the wound, big nucleus, black nucleus, and you always say that stretching of the sclera doesn't cause much of an issue, so you don't mind that. But my concern is, by raising the bottle height, is there a chance of blowing out the posterior capsule, because the nucleus is also stuck there, and we are raising the bottle height here? And is there a chance of the blowing out the posterior capsule sometime? Is there a risk?
Never. Because with the bottle height, see, the average bottle height is 60 centimeters above the eye level. So when the chamber is closed, approximately the pressure inside the eye is 30 millimeters of mercury. So you are operating with this much positive pressure. But even if you raise it to say 70 or 80 millimeters above the eye level, the posterior chamber, only because of that pressure, never gets ruptured, because this is an uniform pressure throughout the entry chamber, not some sharp instrument touching the posterior capsule, or not a localized pressure on the posterior capsule. It stretches the posterior capsule, but that will never break the posterior capsule. Now, raising of the bottle height, generally there is no need, except in some cases where I feel that during capsulexis I am working in a comparatively shallow chamber. In such circumstances, raising bottle height helps. It makes the chamber a little more deep, and your capsulexis become a little more easier.
Sir, in vitrectomized eyes and high myope, capsular blowout can happen for posterior capsule.
Even posterior polar cataract, posterior polar cataract.
Posterior polar cataract. These three conditions, there is a chance.
Yes, I have never experienced even in posterior polar cataract. But you are using in phaco also, because it makes phaco also very safe. Use of AC maintainer. Once you get used to AC maintainer, then you will never leave it, because it makes the surgery very safe. You are used to operating in with a positive pressure. It stretches the capsule and makes you are working in a balloon capsule, so the aspiration of the cortex and everything is very easier with AC maintainer.
Can I add on the same thing?
Yeah.
Actually, Michael Blumenthal used to do everything without any viscoelastic. His first instrument was AC maintainer, and last was AC maintainer out.
Correct.
And those days, AC maintainer was outcast normally from mainstream, till the phacoemulsion incorporated AC continuous irrigation. That is number one. Number two, when the AC maintainer is on and you are continuously on, then always there is capsular AC maintainer pressure is more. So the problems what we face, that there is a flash sign, this and that, should normally not happen unless you are very heroic. Number two, because you're doing positive pressure, the anterior lens capsule is flattened relatively. So it is very helpful to the surgeon to do a controlled, whatever size you want, that size CCC. Number two, the moment you are taking the tilting, that Keiki said, lens salute, you are tilting, the fluid goes behind and it totally separates the posterior capsule. You are safe. Dr. M.S. Ravindran does beautifully, used to do with the air, and it was so visible, so clearly visible. And number three, AC maintainer takes care of all the internal milieu. The most important, the case we last saw, there was so much of fibrillous membrane because the blood aqueous barrier was lost, broken. So if you use AC maintainer, you will never, again I'm repeating, never break the blood aqueous barrier, and your post-operative eye will be absolutely cool. And for that reason, start using, that's all the phaco machines has now inbuilt continuous irrigation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely valid points, because AC maintainer will lessen the liberation of the inflammatory markers such as leukotriene, cytokine. That is because of the positive pressure. The chances of choroidal rupture also are very less, and there is continuous flow from inside out. So whatever the toxins are there, they are also washed out. It will not allow the blood to enter the entry chamber. So, and only thing is that, see, you are talking about the capsulexis. Capsulexis can be done without visco, which I am doing with AC maintainer. But some people have struggle, even if they are doing through the side port, only because of fluid. It is not a viscous thing. There is always a fluctuation of the entry capsule. When the capsular flap, it keeps moving, something like this. So what I do, before the capsular axis, I do not make a complete side port. Say side port width is about 1 millimeter. I just pass the initial spear shaped MVR blade just to make a small opening sufficient to pass the needle. Then do the capsular axis. Then it becomes absolutely closed chamber. Without creating the folds on the cornea, you do a very good, but your capsular axis is controlled. There is no tremulousness of the capsular flap. Once the capsular flap is CCC is totally done, then pass the MVR again through the same side port and now make the proper bed side port. So that is a very useful tip for capsular axis.
Dr. M.S. Ravindra, please say the side port. Please say it, explain it to us and the residents as well. And the second point, when you are not comfortable with the fluttering, you just screw that AC maintenance fluid level. It will be little less. The flutter will be less. And now here, Dr. Ravindran, he's a beautiful how he does the exactly same thing. He does in a different way. Sir, say it, sir.
What do you want me to do?
The side port I used to do that, needle will go and the fluid will come out, and just please explain. So this will be very useful to everybody. You don't show it nowadays now.
No, I have a video. I'll have to search for it. I'll try to search.
No, just speak to them. They will understand. Everybody is operating.
Yeah, basically, see, I being a vitreoretinal surgeon, we do a lot of fluid gas exchange. You know, it originated from there. Number one is the cornea is a magnifier. When the cornea is a magnifier, when there is fluid behind it, it magnifies everything. When you want to do a 5 millimeter axis, actually you'll be doing, because you will be doing a 4.5 millimeter axis. So because it magnifies. External scale will not give rise to the internal measurement. So if you want to really measure the size of the axis as others do it, you have to put a caliper or a scale inside the anterior chamber and then mark it. So when you know, if you want exactly 5 millimeter axis, then you'll have to exchange the you know, like the aqueous and the air. What I do is I make a small. I do it with the needle itself. So you can make a needle and keep injecting and keep the aqueous comes out. So aqueous is completely removed from the anterior chamber, and then air is filled into it. It's a beautiful tight area, and then the visibility improves dramatically. You know, as Dr. Saha mentioned, even in a hypermature cataract, that's the days when trypan blue was not available. I was doing the tunnel floor entry technique even at that time. I was not opening the tunnel. I used to make a tunnel, then enter with a cystotome, puncture the floor of the tunnel, and it was manufactured. The tunnel floor technique was those days, which I have adopted now to the present technique. So the main advantage of needle which goes through tunnel floor is, see, when you have a narrow tunnel and if you work through the tunnel, at some point in time, you're going to hit the edge of the tunnel. So you'll have folds in the cornea. So doing a rhexis proximally towards you is very difficult, because by the time you come, the cornea gets folded, and because of the depression, not only you're going to, if that is a tunnel, you're going to hit the tunnel there, but also you're going to depress it. So depression will lose the tunnel, and then the wrinkles are much more. So tunnel floor entry technique is, with the cystotome, you make a puncture in the floor of the tunnel, go inside, and the tunnel remains sealed, and then you can do a beautiful rhexis under air. After that, I'll make the main tunnel and do an air visco exchange. I mean, that's a marvelous. I think Dr. Saha has tried that a lot. I used to talk a lot about it, but now things have changed. My technique also has changed over a period of time. I mean, I always remember that's extremely useful. Air is that in a closed area inside the eye, you can do wonders with that. For example, same concept is used for descemetorrhexis. Exactly same.
We the vitreous surgeons do and think differently. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Sheetal, can we go to the next question? You have to unmute yourself.
My next question was for Sundaram Shetty, sir. In his case presentation, in the difficult technique, you were showing us where the intraocular pressure raised suddenly. Sir, did you think of starting mannitol intraoperatively when you saw that the pressures were so high? I was just curious when you were showing that case.
No, because it takes at least, I think, half an hour to 45 minutes before any effect of mannitol comes. No, I should have actually cancelled that case. because looking at that the corneal haze, I suspected that the pressure may be high. So I thought of giving a block, and I gave a paravalvular block so that ciliary ganglion is paralyzed. So expecting some amount of pressure to come down, and I also gave digital pressure on the eyeball, and the cornea cleared. I was hoping that it will continue like that, but moment I injected visco and started doing the capsulotomy, that pressure itself in the entry chamber made the cornea hazy again. I couldn't see the other axis.
Can I add on, sir, if you permit me? You saw the post-op result, and at that point in time, any of us can face this intraoperative hard eye, and the worst could be expulsive. So the point could have been use the mannitol and keep the patient away. Let the patient develops as he goes to the toilet, and then come back and do the things. And then you save yourself from future problems. And these are the cases, if there is a hypertensive background, patient develop expulsive. Could be just exudate, but if you hemorrhage, it is serious problem. So these cases should be kept away, and you will operate at the end of the surgery. And by the time, the pressure eye management must be done adequately, thoroughly, totally. Or you can postpone for another day, because you entered, nothing will go wrong. And being in RP center, I have managed maximum expulsive myself, six, mine and any of my residents or teachers, they just called me, I ran. So expulsive was very common in the ECC days. So that could happen here. So please delay the surgery and do it at the end. Just give the mannitol and do all the things necessary. My request. Thanks, sir.
Can I come in here?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Dr. Singh. Yeah. See, especially I want to ask seniors, Dr. Shetty, Dr. Ravindra. Many senior doctors, they used to give IV bolus of preservative-free xylocaine, that is Xylocard, to reduce the intraocular pressure during surgery, especially in the olden days when the wound used to be open like ECC. If they feel that the antechamber is showering, the pressure is high, they used to give Xylocard. It is a known thing. Many senior surgeons, they used to give Xylocard. They used to take anesthetic to push it intravenous, and the pressure comes down. So what is the mechanism of action? And this thing is not published in any literature anywhere.
Personal experience.
I have no knowledge of this.
Yes,
many seniors used to do.
I don't think so. We have not made anybody or heard any time.
Dr. Ravindra, even Dr. Kekineta used to do.
I have not given, but I know that Xylocard is given. Maybe it will anesthetize the whole body. I'm not sure, including
but no, sir, it can have a toxic effect on the heart, right? This thing.
Xylocard is
arrhythmias.
It is given for arrhythmias.
Yeah.
Cardiosedative. Yes,
so it is a beneficial effect actually for the heart also.
A lot of people used to give Xylocard intravenously for this. A lot of people used to give mannitol also, as Dr. Dhaliwal has pointed out. And the best is to, if the pressure is one thing, the Subtenolone injection is a beautiful tool in such situations, which will be very, very handy. I mean, it will really paralyze all the muscles and reduce it. And look at all the, paraphernalia you have around the eye. Where is it causing pressure? The drape itself and all those things has to be looked at. And, like in a closed eye, I do not hesitate to give a pressure on the eye. This is what Dr. Daljit Singh has taught us, how to manage expulsive. I think Dr. Saha will remember. He always had 4 or 5 the thick
needles
or 10-0 needles ready on all sets. If it happens, the first thing he does is he doesn't even. It takes time to suture it. So he just passed the needles, 4 or 5 needles, on the tunnel.
And before that, sir, he will put his white thumb, press the whole thing, because it's an end-to-end incision in those days, and then start putting 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And that is a really smart thing to do.
Yes. So
we cannot be that fast.
The expulsive hemorrhage in the central retinal artery or choroid vessels basically, which is quite high. So the first thing that you should do when you're suspected is apply a lot of pressure. Forget about optic now, forget about everything. Put your fingers on the eye and wait for a couple of minutes time, minimum 3-4, till the clottings occur and the blood stops. That's, Dr. Sai, that's the beautiful thing about, just apply a lot of pressure. You sit on it. Nothing will happen. I've seen retina coming back and patients having 6, 20.
Yes, we have all managed.
624 vision after that, but then apply pressure on the eye and let the blood stop. And then you close the wound and close the wound. That's it. Do not worry about anything else. And the other thing you can do is canthotomy. You just cut it and widen it, because the whole thing comes out. Do a cantholysis and apply pressure. A cantholysis after that. First, as Dr. Saha rightly mentioned, pressure on the eye and sit on it for 3-4 minutes time. Do nothing. Don't worry about anything. Just apply pressure. The aim is to salvage the eye.
Sclerotomy, sir? Sclerotomy?
Nothing, sir. Nothing now.
You don't have time.
Stop the
Milliseconds.
bleeding.
Don't have time.
Stop the bleeding. Sclerotomy comes later. First, stop the bleeding. Wherever the bleeding is occurring, let it clot. Naturally.
One second about sclerotomy, you should not do sclerotomy at that day. The moment you do sclerotomy, you are reducing the pressure there and more bleeding.
More bleeding.
So sclerotomy should be at least after 3 days if you want to do early. Otherwise, after a week. So first thing first, put your finger on the wound, open wound. So which is much less today with these tunnels. Number 2, close it with anything you have at your hand and just pray to God. That's it. Dr. Daljit was visionary. Nobody can match him in his genius and things. Fantastic. I have put his cannula. I tell it that Daljit's cannula. You can see the photographs. And that is my visco expression cannula, hydro expression cannula, and 99% nucleus will come out with what Dr. Ranjit was showing. That is the Daljit's ECC Jamana nucleus cannula. Thank you, sir. We are fortunate, Dr. Ravindra, we had the best of the teachers. Really, we are lucky.
Next question. Can we have next question?
Sir, yeah. I wanted to ask.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Sundaram Shetty, sir. Just one doubt I had. See, if the intraocular pressure is high, you've given a peribulbar block. That itself, after the block, you would have given some massage, and I would expect some amount of pressure to go down. Then you made the side port, main incision and all that. Surprising that it has not gone down, because many times in angle closure glaucoma also, you will do a paracentesis and try to reduce the pressure. So that was the doubt I had. How come it sort of never came down? It in the middle of the surgery, again, it went up. That was one doubt I had.
Yeah, that is the line of management I took, hoping that ciliary ganglion paralysis would reduce the intraocular pressure. And I, with my fingers, I did the this one massage also, and the cornea cleared. So that encouraged me to go ahead with the surgery. But as I was in the middle of the capsular excision itself, the cornea returned to the old, that haze. You could see the needle is all looking hazy. So then I knew I am in trouble, because once I have broken the entry capsule, there is no going back. So that is when I had to, go ahead with the surgery. And
that also you could go back, sir. And anybody using preoperative Diamox, please don't use it. If you want to use, please use mannitol, no Diamox, because the moment you enter the AC, the Diamox has nothing to do with it. So don't use any Diamox. It has only the side effects, and who knows that this patient will not develop Stevens.
Yeah, Diamox has no role in cataract surgery.
Please stress it to everybody, because it's quite widely followed in India at least. Outside, no, but here it is too much. So, sir, you stress again.
Absolutely no role.
No Diamox, no.
Neither preoperative nor
It has a role. It has a role of complication producing, and sometimes, rarely, Stevens-Johnson syndrome in unknown patient. So you never know how much disaster you can invite.
So you would not use it post-operatively also, like say in some cases?
Not required, as routinely practiced. Again, repeating, not required as routinely practiced. If you have rest pressure, you have to manage. But not required. People do is random, blanket, 2 tablet, before 2 days, after 2 days. That is useless, and some patient may develop. And minimalist, be minimalist. That's the mantra of today. Yeah. Modern day mantra, minimalist.
Yeah. Cataract surgery should be tabletless, along with sutureless. Correct.
And no antibiotic outside world India, but Indian government rules, you have to use antibiotic. I was not using antibiotic. I mean, today I don't use it. I write down, but say no need, because I have faced problem with
I just like to
oral
rephrase
antibiotics.
what he's saying.
Oral.
Just to clarify the doubt, Dr. Saha is telling there's no prophylactic role for Diamox. For the first post-op day, you are having a raised pressure, very high raised pressure because
you
of
can give it.
retained viscoelastic or something. Then you are justified to use Diamox along with other medications, but for a short duration of time, maybe just 1 day, half tablet 2 times for 1 day or 2 days, but not prophylactically. It's not a contraindication.
Dr. Deepak, may I explain my points clear?
Yeah.
Number one, we all make 2 ways of leaving the antechamber at the end of the surgery. Either you make it hypotonous or you make it hypertonous. And the best way is to put adequate bubble, air bubble. Air bubble will naturally absorb in 24 to 36 hours time, and the fluid will come. So the pressure will be balanced, because the pressure comes 8 to 12 hours after if you have made it normal tension or hypertension at the end of the surgery. But the thing you said that if you have viscous induced day, then I am not contesting. Your duty as a surgeon is to leave the antechamber as clean, as virgin possible at the end of the surgery. When done that, okay, you have to pay the penalty. But if you clean it, rarely, patient is a chronic ACG, we missed it, we have to require the tablet. But patient is some other associated problems you might have. But plain, clear, routine cataract surgery, Diamox is not required.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not prophylactic use, but it is not
even post-operative. If I put a air bubble will take as the internal balance.
My point is you have to check the pressure post-operatively, and you find it high, very high, then it's one of the options to use it. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
True. But what's the cause of that raised pressure? I have to find out the cause as a doctor.
Yeah. So it could be a complex surgery operatively. You should have some.
No problem.
That's the reason.
So the routine, what I'm saying, routine.
Of course.
Is routine.
So routine shouldn't be used. It's not a prophylactic.
So basically, people are following you. The residents, new coming residents are following us, and especially you. So they will carry forward to them, and who will be following them? It will be a cascade downhill. That's the thing we are trying to stress.
I think the first thing we should start recording pressures of the first day. So
yes,
that we
always
decide with it. Okay.
And digital, please.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next questions, Dr. Sheetal.
Sir, Shetty sir, did you do a surgical PI at the end of this surgery?
No, why?
PI, no.
Considering the raised pressures, and you were suspecting a narrow angle?
Narrow angle, no.
Okay.
No, I could
not your suspicion.
I could form the entry chamber, and before closing, there was no shelling of the AC. But I was tense. I had put sutures to the main wound and hydrated the side ports, and AC was formed, but the eye was tense.
Okay.
Sir, to my eyes, the probable thinking is that because there's so many things are done, you have to use more viscoelastic, and the viscoelastic at the end, judiciously you didn't remove it fully to maintain the antechamber depth. And that viscoelastic to me is the root cause of that thing, and the little more manipulation of the iris. So they created that membrane. So that is my understanding by seeing your video. I may be totally wrong.
Very much possible, because the iris is a bit battered,
Yes,
definitely.
the iris, yes.
And particularly the vectis going few times in and out,
Yes,
and trying to nucleus in pieces out and all that. Post-operatively, it was very stormy. The entry chamber was entry chamber, and pressure was high for first 3-4 days, and it came down with medication. And everything settled down by the time it was end of the first week and second week, and slowly these exudates started organizing, but it had formed, obviously. As we see, on the surface of the eye wall is there, the amount of postosinic A, and some of them extending up to the inner lip of the main opening, the tunnel as well. So it was definitely a very traumatic surgery. I have to accept that.
I have a question and explanation to understand to all my bright people here, that whenever we see this is now we know what is TAS. So if we have something during the surgery and they were stormy, And are we justified in cleaning the muck in 24 to 48 hours time so that everything is cleaned off and they'll be better off? Dr. Ravinder, Dr. Boramani, Dr. Deepak, and everybody, Dr. Ranjit, because I personally feel, and I have tried once or twice, that if there is a more, all these movements and all this elastic I could not clean or could not be removed fully, I went after 24 to 36 hours and cleaned fully, and the patient had a better. I had a very limited experience. Other people, how they are reacting to the things. And TAS was known after many years after that. So this was before TAS. Sir, Dr. Ravinder sir, my guru.
नहीं आप तो गुरु है भाई.
नहीं sir.
I think let Sundaram Shetty answer this.
No, I will go back because as such, the pressure is high, and then visibility is again question mark. The little corneal edema, everything, and it is iris is inflamed, and then in the presence of all this, I was aware of this, because that the visco had to be removed, which I have taken time to remove as much as I could. And I was not really sure that I left a lot of visco. But it is basically the inflammation of the iris that led to all this excess.
Yes, in this case, yes, that's the cause.
Not this.
I think what Dr. Sanjit is telling is we'll have to analyze at any point of time, pre-op, during surgery, and post-op. I think Dr. Deepak will highlight this. We have to analyze the cause for high pressures. If you look at the post-op, as he rightly said, leftover viscoelastics, as Dr. Shetty and Dr. Saha said, leftover elastics, and we'll forget about the inflammation. Inflammation has to be managed, high pressure has to be managed, and viscoelastics has to be managed. And now you'll have to remove the toxicity from inside the eye. How do you remove this toxicity? Not by reducing the aqueous production. You'll have to increase the aqueous outflow.
Yes.
That's only possible by topical medications. So put maximum topical medications into the eye so that outflow increases. And you can even take him to the operation theater and make it through the tunnel. You can open it up and let some fluid come out. And it has to be done under sterile atmosphere environment, not in the OPD. So you can just take, your side ports, just take it inside. I've done it in very bad situations. Any amount of liters of mannitol will not help. Dozens of Diamox will not help. One letting out of some fluid from the AC, you'll see cornea clearing immediately. This can be done intraoperatively also. You see, we're all familiar with intravitreal injections. We know where the pars plana is, the 2.5 to 3 millimeter zone. Take a 26 gauge needle or a 30 gauge needle. Go obliquely. Don't go directly to make a opening way. Go obliquely, bevel up, and go into the midvitreous cavity. Don't push the whole needle inside. Just take out 0.1 ml of fluid. You are so comfortable in proceeding with the surgery.
Thank God you said the right thing.
Do not move the needle tip. You should go straight inside. Keep a very gentle aspiration on it. So wherever it hits a fluid pocket, it will suck the fluid. Even if you take out 0.1 ml of fluid out of the eye, the anterior segment behaves exactly the way you want it to behave. So what Dr. Sundaram Shetty did at that moment is enlarge the tunnel. It's a beautiful concept. Everybody has got an feeling that we should not enlarge the tunnel. They let us do it with the smaller and smaller. So at that time, your main aim is to protect endothelium. What he did is absolutely right. Having stuck in that situation, instead of bisecting the nucleus, he enlarged the tunnel. So that's a very good decision that he has made. So sit and analyze what are the causes for the complications you have. Take your own time, half a minute, nothing's going to happen. Think on it. And you decide that you're going to give the best to the patient at that point of time. All your talent should flow through your hands. And then you will find a way to come out. There is no standard, way of handling things. It depends upon your past experience, how any patient